former President Donald Trump was on Jeanine Pirro's radio show. I didn't even know she had a radio show. I knew she had a Fox News like nightly show. I didn't know she had a radio show. And she was asking him about, Russia's war in Ukraine. And he made some comments that are getting headlines. Let's listen and then I'll react.
Can Russia occupy that area? Can they afford to? I mean, economically, aren't they hurting right now?
Yeah, not the way it's going. They can't. Everyone thought they'd go in very quickly, they'd occupy and put it back into Russia like the Soviet Union. They wanted to rebuild the Soviet Union probably with a different name in all likelihood. But they wanted to rebuild the Soviet Union. And that's what this is all about to a large extent. And then you say, what's the purpose of this? They had a country. You could see it was a country where there's a lot of love. And, we're doing it because somebody wants to make his country larger, or he wants to put it back the way it was when actually it didn't work very well.
So the quote everybody's talking about is, it's a country where there's a lot of love. Now, to be fair, I've listened to this clip 3, 4, 5 times, and I don't know if he's talking about in Russia there was a lot of love, or in the Soviet Union there was a lot of love. Everybody thinks it's Soviet Union there was a lot of love, but actually listening to it this time, it seemed to me like maybe he was saying, well, in Russia there was a lot of love, almost trying to make a case like, so why would you try to go back to the Soviet Union? I don't know. You guys can listen. You guys can have your own interpretation. Either way, it's hilarious. It's classic Donald Trump. But to the idea that Putin wants to reconstitute the Soviet Union, perhaps in his heart of heart, the borders of the Soviet Union, but no, he's a Russian Empire guy. He's not a Soviet Union guy. So in other words, he's of course hostile to any sort of notion of communism. Very critical of that. Not a supporter of that. Not a fan of that. Much more a fan of the previous iterations of the Russian Empire. I mean, you look at his politics, he's an authoritarian strongman. There's, of course, an autocracy and a capitalist system in Russia. Now, a lot of that, keep it real, a lot of that has to do with the neoliberal shock therapy of the 1990s that was imposed on Russia from the outside. That's just a fact. And it was very sort of explicit. Let's privatize everything, but we're going to give the oligarchs complete control of the industries. It's almost like, as Matt Taibbi said, it's almost like a caricature view of capitalism. It's almost like capitalism on steroids in a sense. And it didn't deliver on the promises that were made. It didn't really, quote unquote, westernize Russia. And then, of course, when you have, the Putin government that they don't give a shit about free speech or free expression or other things that are supposed to go hand in hand with becoming more democratic. And it's not something to look at favorably. It's not a positive system. But yes, in terms of the idea he wants to reconstitute some glory from the past, I think that's inarguable. I think that's obvious. And Putin said as much in his speech, his blood and soil portion of his speech, where, the Ukraine's a fake state. They owe a giant debt to us. They turned their back on us. Well, now we have a right. We're going to go in there and basically make what's rightly ours. And so Putin was willing to tolerate when there were effectively strong men who were on the side of Russia in the neighboring countries in the post-Soviet states. He was willing to tolerate that. But then as soon as they started falling one by one and some of them wanted to align with the West, that's when he's like, unacceptable. Can't allow it. And then, of course, you got NATO, the military alliance encroachment closer and closer to the border. That was another factor here. Not everything, but part of it. And so he's actually not wrong when he says he wants to reconstitute the Soviet Union. He's wrong in that, of course, he doesn't want it to be communist, but he does want it to be some semblance of former Russian empires. So he's actually not wrong about that. But the funny part, of course, everybody's pointing out is it's a country with a lot of love. A lot of love. Was Russia a country with a lot of love, or is the Soviet Union a country with a lot of love? I don't know. If I'm trying to be kind to Trump here, my interpretation is he's talking about ultra-nationalists in Russia who yearn for some former glory, and he looks at them and says, it looks like they really love their country. They really love their country. And it's a similar thing with the right in the U.S. It can be interpreted as, the fact that you guys are such strong nationalists and you want to seal the border up and you want to, make America great again. They really love their country. They really love their country. Now, of course, in reality, a lot of these ideologies are very harmful and destructive and don't yield the sort of promise that's inherent in them. But I think that's what he's referring to, is like when I see people who, I see a lot of people who talk about the country, in the country. These people love their country. They just love their country. There's a lot of love. There's a lot of love there. But it's like, who exactly are you talking about? Who are you looking at that is portraying those kinds of feelings about either the former Soviet Union or Russia? I mean, of course there's some, but I don't know where he's seeing that. He just babbles. Like, Trump just babbles. I'm not hating because I babble too. Like, I'm a babbler. But, I mean, I don't... It was a country with a lot of love. They had a lot of love. He wants to bring back the Soviet Union. He definitely doesn't want to bring back any semblance of communism. That is not his cup of tea, but in his heart of hearts, of course, he wants to try to expand the current borders of Russia and make Russia, strong again. So anyway, there you have it. Trump's been going around talking a lot about this issue. And of course, the main point he's making is what you'd expect him to make, which is like, wouldn't have happened under me, would not have happened under me. Vladimir Putin knows he could not mess with me. That's like his biggest thing. And the point I've made it over and over is, well, look, it happened. So it happened under Democratic and Republican presidents. I mean, the invasion of Georgia was under George W. Bush. And George W. Bush, on paper, is very similar to Donald Trump. A Republican president who is a warmonger and is sort of unintelligent. And he invaded Georgia under George W. Bush. So I think if Trump had gotten a second term, this probably would have happened anyway. But he's in a convenient position where he can turn around and say, well, it literally didn't happen under me, so that's why, I'm the right one for the job. And there was a poll that showed 62% of Americans agree with Trump. It's sad, but it's there. Like 62% believe that. So, and we're going to get to some stories later on new polling on 2024 that have some interesting conclusions in there. But anyway, there you have it. Trump's out there doing the rounds. He's babbling. And of course, none of this stuff is going to make a dent. None of this stuff is going to make a dent because this is, in terms of Trump scandals, this one doesn't crack like the top 50, and this was the news story of the day involving Trump. But there you have it. Ever since Adpocalypse, when YouTube defunded all independent news and politics overnight, we haven't trusted them. We know they can pull the rug out from underneath us at any time. If you enjoy this content, please consider tipping $1 or $2 per month on the Secular Talk Patreon. Link in the video description box below. Thanks for your support.